Hi, I'm Maria Theoharis, or Velo Sews on social media. Thanks for watching and listening to Sew Over 50's podcast on Sew Organised Style. Remember to support Sew Organised Style podcast through our Patreon account each month. A few dollars each month helps me know you'd like to hear from people in the sewing community. Today's guest is Natalie Chim, and I'm hoping that you'll love to hear her sewing perspective today. Let's watch and listen to Natalie now. Natalie Chim, thank you for coming on to Sew Over 50's podcast on Sew Organised Style. I've been following you for so long, and finally we get together on the podcast. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Should we let our listeners know how we finally got to meet in real life the other day?
Yes.
What did you do, and how did we start to figure out we were in the same place?
Well, I happened to be on holiday in Newcastle and I was just posting photos of my holidays to stories, and the next minute I receive a message from Maria saying, "Are you going to Newcastle Frogtails?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know anything about it." And then I asked, "Well, where are you?" And she said, "I'm staying at the such and such hotel."
Yes.
And I said, "Oh, that's just down the road from me." And so you suggested we meet for a coffee, and we did. And we've been waiting to meet for so long. I think we tried to meet up in Melbourne because you're in Sydney and I'm in Melbourne, and that didn't work out. And so of all the places, just out of the blue, here we are. And then we ran into each other at the museum and we had another lovely chat.
Newcastle is a big place, but it's also a small place
It's
where
very
there's a bunch
small.
of people who sew. I was so pleased that you said, yes, let's meet for coffee, because I thought, oh, this is so exciting. I do get excited when I meet people when we're on the road or even in Sydney. So if people want to know how to follow you on Instagram, what's your account name?
Oh, it's terrible. People can't pronounce it. It's Natalie C. Sews. And that's the only place I am online is on Instagram. So I do dabble a bit in Facebook, but it's mostly in private groups and it's mostly about costuming.
Oh,
Yeah, and some of my followers are going to get a real shock when they see this podcast because they've never seen me.
and listeners, sorry for going on about this Newcastle thing. You had been making a vest, a black travel vest.
Yes.
And I'd been watching how you made it. And so, thankfully for me, when you approached me when we were at coffee, you were wearing that vest. So I thought, that's got to be Natalie.
Yes. Because otherwise you didn't know what I would look like.
No.
Yeah, so I thought I'll wear the vest because Maria will recognise it. And I was also, because I took it on holiday to try it out, but it's just too hot in Newcastle to wear it.
In February, yeah. So where are you going to be travelling to with the vest?
Well, I
While we're
hope to
talking about it.
travel to Europe with the vest. So that's why I wanted the concealed pockets for your passport. I have another larger version, which I have on my grid that I wore to New Zealand, which was really handy because often you don't have a safe in the hotel. So, you can put your jewellery, you can put your passport, your room key, etc., and they're all zipped away inside. So that's the idea of it. But I needed a cooler version, but yeah, not in Newcastle.
You got the fit right. You got all the tech about it right. To me, I thought it's perfect.
Yeah, I really like it. So I have to get a few more chances to wear it now.
You talked about costuming. So can you tell us what you usually sew and how long you've been sewing for, Natalie?
So I usually sew garments and costumes.
Yep.
I've been sewing for about 43 years, basically from when I was about 17. And I had a professional sewing business for about 27 years. I did custom dressmaking and alterations. But in 2020, I retired. So now I sew garments for myself and my daughter and my mum. And then I dabble in some other side bits like slow stitching and embroidery. And I just did some needle lace for anyone that's been recently watching my stories and grid. That was my holiday project.
It looked really stunning.
Yeah, it's very simple. Oh, it's here. Can we see? But it's very time consuming. But it was a great holiday project because I always like to have a hand project to do while I'm on holidays because I get bored if I'm not sewing. I have to be doing something creative.
So the costuming, where did that come into your life?
So the costuming was volunteer work, which I started doing with when my children were in primary school.
Yep.
And so I did primary school, and then much to my son's horror, I did costuming for his college. Sort of the teacher found out I could sew, and the next minute, here I am doing the costumes. And we did Hamlet, and I did musicals. We did All Shook Up, which was really great. But unfortunately, COVID put an end to that. So I really love making costumes because there's a certain freedom in costume making that you don't have in garment making, because they don't have to be as exact, and they can be a lot more elaborate. So,
isn't the elaborate side of it because they're on a stage in front of a huge audience? So
you have to be able to see it from 12 feet away. But the other great thing is if you make a mistake, they can't see it from 12 feet away. So we used to spend a lot of time saying, can you see that from 12 feet away? No. And I really enjoyed working with the students because they used to get so excited about dressing up, and it's a lot more ideas that you can do in costuming that you can't do in your everyday sewing.
When it came to you developing the actual outfits, did you start from scratch? Did you use secondhand clothing? How did you go about making sure you met budget?
Everything. So we went to the op shop and we found clothing and we altered it. I would do them from a sloper. I would just draw out the costume, and I might have to make 5 jackets all the same, but for all different sized students. So I've done that. So everything that you can think of doing, we would do. Staples, safety pins, hot glue gun. But in costuming, the overlocker is your best friend.
Did you have to do anything special for when people did quick changes?
And not necessarily Velcro, because you could hear Velcro ripping. So large press studs, which I think they're called poppers in England, were very popular, yes. So we did have to do that, and that's what dress rehearsals are for. So, trying to find ways to quickly get things on and off, make them easy access. So sometimes they have to have zippers where you'll have a zipper in a 16th century garment. So not always historically correct. Oh, look, it was such fun and I just loved it.
So we can only find you on Instagram.
Correct.
We never see your face.
No.
Why is that?
I think I was just very nervous about being on Instagram, and then I just never, ever got on there, and I don't particularly like looking at myself. And I only recently, when I did those linen trousers, I thought, oh, I can't put them on my mannequin. So I actually learned how to use the time setting on your phone to take the photos. But then I just cut my head out.
Listeners and viewers, Natalie was wearing those trousers that she's talking about. So that was the other thing that I thought, this has got to be Natalie, was the vest and the trousers.
Yeah, well, the linen, fantastic for Newcastle. I'd just live in linen if I lived there.
What state is your sewing room in? Because we can see it from here.
Yes, so it's fairly tidy at the moment because I don't have any major projects going on. So I'm just dabbling in small projects.
How did you discover the Sew Over 50 community?
Oh, that's a story. I think they discovered me. I joined Instagram in February of 2020, not knowing that in another month's time we were going to be in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I think they found me, and it was really great because I was at home. I was in Victoria. We were in lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's how I found you, I think, through Sew Over 50. So Sandy and I can't remember the other lady's name.
Judith.
They do an amazing job of running the Sew Over 50 account. So,
Yeah.
so it was great to see other sewers and, and be inspired by what they were doing. So,
Yeah. And at the moment, um, I've been in the Sober 50 editor team, and
yes,
it's quite often that when people see the posts that I put up, they're usually quite technical, and I love all the technical posts that you put
yes.
up. Yeah.
Well, I
So,
love the posts that you put up, especially the ones about how to use Instagram,
oh, the reels.
the reel, and all the different things that you do, because often a lot of us don't know how to do these sort of more technical things. So
Yeah.
it's been a great learning experience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Good. At
but
least, I mean, I don't have a grandchild to say, hey, so and so, can you show me how to
yes,
do X, Y, and Z? And I think, okay, a lot of people might be in that position. So
correct.
maybe I should be putting these bits that I know onto the So Organized Style Instagram account that people can see.
Yes.
Just, yeah. And I also put them on YouTube as well. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll be up there. They're always available. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. But did you mean technical things as in sewing technical
Yeah, so the
posts?
posts
Yes.
that I do for Sober 50 usually have a
Mm.
technical bent. I mean, I love the great photography that people do and how they
Mm.
share, but I think I'm just a sewing nerd.
Well, I definitely am. And my whole Instagram is about showing the journey of what
Mm,
I'm doing, not just the finished product. And the reason I do that is so that I can share what I've learned over my 43 years of sewing to give people, tips and tricks that they can do. And I've
mm.
had feedback from people who've messaged me and said, oh, I was about to do that and didn't know how to do it. And you've shown me. So it's a great way. It's a great teaching tool, actually.
You and I talked about teaching and where to go to learn, and I think that was one of the things that I really wanted for you to be able to talk to us about. So if I knew someone who was just leaving school and
Mm.
wanted to start to sew, what advice would you give them? Because
Well, there's so many resources available now that I didn't have when I was learning. Because the problem with the internet is it's so vast. You don't know where or who is providing really good information. So that's why I like to post my sort of techniques, etc., to Instagram. But I also like to share in my stories people I find on Instagram who I know are doing really good work. I have a friend, Trisha Camaccio, and she's from Creative Costume Academy. She has a mission to help people learn pattern making. And I wish I'd had these sort of resources when I was starting out. I went to trade school to learn, and you learn from scratch. And this is going to go off topic, but you learn from scratch. I have a passion for pattern making, and it's really hard to learn, and a lot of people don't like having to draft the slopers from scratch. So her mission is to help people start with a sloper or a commercial pattern and be able to alter them and hack them to get the designs that they want, because otherwise you just lose interest. I remember being in class, and I'm a real pattern making nerd, so I loved it. I thought it was great, but other people, they were just dropping because it was a lot of math and hard work. So
mm,
I think if people can start from a better place and quickly learn and get into the fun part, then they're more likely to continue on with it. So, and Trisha's so good. She just did a boot camp. She does a week of the Fitabulous Fit Boot Camp, a week of free how you manipulate darts and how you do a fitting on a skirt. And I think she does a bodice as well, and shows you how to do that. And that's all for free. And then you can join her pattern place if you want to. So that's one great resource. But there's so many great resources out there. But why I put it to my stories is because I'll look at them and I know from my experience, yes, that person knows what they're talking about. And other ones I might look at and think, no. Because it's really hard for beginner sewists. I find with like the big 4 patterns, when I'd get the pattern instructions, you'd look at them, they put the hardest methods of constructing a garment. And when I went to, so we haven't done my history, but when I went to the Melbourne School of Fashion, I had a brilliant teacher and she taught us industry methods. And I was just like shocked. Here were these easy ways to make a welt pocket, to put a zipper in. I would encourage beginner sewists to go and look for garment construction techniques beyond the pattern instructions that they're using, things that, and have a look around on the internet. There's a good book here. It's they're mostly old books now, but this is I can get it lined up. This is a good book. Yeah, it's Sewing Secrets from the Fashion Industry. It's edited by Susan Huxley. I think I used it recently to put the pocket in my linen pants.
And that worked.
So that's my advice to beginners. Find good resources, find good books, find good people on the internet. If you're into vintage patterns, Charlotta from Charlotta's Pattern Cutting School very generously shows how to analyse patterns and use patterns.
You gave me a reason why you, with your account, will let people know about other larger accounts with resources.
Yeah, well, predominantly because having all my experience, I know whether they're a good teacher or not. And I can see their work and know whether they're a good resource. Okay. Because, as I said before, there's lots of resources on the internet, but if you're a beginner, how do you know what you don't know? So you need to find people who can say, yes, there's a lot of courses and things that you can do, but you want to make sure that you're going to get good quality teaching for the money that you're paying. So that's why I like to recommend Tricia and Charlotta. But you know that when you go with those people, you are going to get quality teaching. And I think that's really important.
So you're learning. Where did you go?
So I started out with the traditional little Barbie doll story. Don't we all have that story? Did you make clothes for your Barbie doll?
No, but a lot of people did.
They did, I had a little children's sock and I sewed it up the middle of the trousers and then she couldn't move her legs. Oh. And then I thought, so I sewed a little U shape and cut it up the middle and then she could move her legs. And that's where I think, back to where my brain started with that sort of pattern making engineering, because pattern making is like engineering, where that started. But then when I went to high school, I didn't have any teachers that were very inspiring. The first person to teach me how to sew was my mum, and she taught me how to sew from commercial patterns. But then what happened was I went to work and I started buying Vogue magazine. But in the 80s, if you saw something in Vogue, it didn't appear in the shops for 5 years. It wasn't in any of the big 4 patterns. And I was really frustrated because I'm like, I want what's in that magazine. Luckily, a colleague at work said to me, my cousin's going to the Melbourne College of Textiles, which is now run by RMIT. She said she's learning how to make patterns. So I ran up and I went along, and as I said, after 2 weeks I was in. I loved it. So I did that. But the problem with a trade school is that they teach you how to make a standard size 12. And then you grade up from that. So once I'd finished, I was trying to make garments for myself, but I wasn't a standard size 12. And you wouldn't believe who actually taught me fitting: my dad. Because my dad had worked in the rag trade for all his career. He'd worked for Rex Bilton Van Heusen shirts, and they were selling to Henry Bucks. He had a lot of knowledge about high-end shirts and things. And then he ended his career at Coles Myer doing their quality control. So he actually taught me how to, to take in things and fit them. And then I went to the Melbourne School of Fashion because I started working professionally and realised I needed to up my game in the garment construction area because I had the pattern making knowledge, but I didn't have that professional garment construction. So I went to the Melbourne School of Fashion. That's where I met my teacher, and she just taught us all amazing methods in day wear. We did evening wear, we did blazers. My daughter's still wearing one of the blazers that I made 30 years ago. So that was great. And I've got sample books. So that's another thing I would recommend to beginners. When you find a great technique, make samples, keep notes so that you have it as build a good reference library of techniques that you can use. And Lydia, she really sort of impressed on us, have more than one technique to use, like have a lot of techniques in your toolbox, and I'll explain a bit later why that is when we talk about returning sewers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about it now.
All right, for returning.
The advice that you'd give to people who are coming back to sewing after not sewing for many years.
Yeah.
That's a really good segue.
Well, I think they'll have the sewing knowledge because I think that the sewing muscle lasts. But I've got 3 areas I think they should look at. So I think they should really learn about fabrics, because I had an aha moment. I was sewing a bridesmaid's dress and I had this chiffon and I'm trying to get this technique to work on this chiffon. It's not working. So I'll try something else. So I tried another technique, probably looked in Threads magazine because that was one of my great resources, and found this other technique and it worked. And I went, I should be listening to the fabric, not to what I want to impose on the fabric. So that started a great exploration of fabrics. My husband would come home, what's that smell? I was burning fabrics in the laundry. Trying to find what's a natural fabric, what's a synthetic, because you sew natural fabrics in a different way to what you sew man-made fabrics. You need to use different techniques. Costuming disasters. The lady that was designing, she made these jackets for the boys. It was a polyester fabric. She made this really large head of the sleeve, and I thought to myself, I'm never going to gather that into the armhole because I can't shrink it with steam like you can with wool. And so, that's not going to work. Had to completely do something different.
But you worked it out because of the fabric.
Because I had the knowledge and I knew from the start it wasn't going to work. That's where experience comes in handy. So I think I sewed them in flat and then cut off the extra.
I put my hands over ears and go, la, la, la. Pretend I didn't hear that.
Because you just can't do. If it had been a wool fabric, it would have been fine, but you just couldn't. And it was thick, so it was really unforgiving. So, so that's where experience comes in. So, so know your fabrics, learn what's the best techniques to use on fabrics. And then the next part is get into pattern making and fitting, and try and get the best fit on your body that you can, and there's lots of great resources. There's a great book. I wish I had this book when I was trying to fit all my clients. I used to experiment on my clients. Susan Calci recommended this book. It's Fitting and Pattern Alteration. This is the 3rd edition, and it has 3 authors who I can't pronounce their names. Elizabeth Leike, Judith Rasband, and Dalla Potberg Steineckert. Fabulous book. It has every conceivable fitting issue that you might have. But the great thing about it is it offers you 3 different ways to alter the pattern. So you can use it to alter commercial patterns. It's got the pivot and slide method. It has the seam allowance method. It has the slash method. So it's just a really great book. It's quite pricey, but it's an investment. So I'd really recommend that. The other one I don't have is probably heard of it, the Gina Renee, the fitting book. Gina worked in the fashion industry and she put a book out a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And that's a very good book because she knows what she's talking about as well. So they're my fitting recommendations. Oh, well, our dear Claire Schaefer, who passed away recently.
Yep.
I was so upset. She was doing a YouTube. She was going to share all her photos, and she had all these YouTube videos planned, and she never got to do them. I cried. This is Sew Any Fabric. The great thing about this book and this other Fabric
Betzina.
Savvy, by Sandra Betzina, is because it shows you for each fabric, it tells you what needle size to use, what type of seam to try and use. It just has great information there. Pressing, stitching, burn testing, all of that sort of thing. So that's great and for all the different types of fabrics. I think if you're starting out, they're really great resources, or even if you're coming back into sewing. So,
Natalie, these are all your recommendations. You're not saying people have to use those resources, but these are resources that if you want to use them, go ahead and use them.
Yes, that's right. They're great resources. And if you can find other resources, I know there's updated versions of them, but if you can find other resources, like them, then go ahead and use them. And I'm always happy for people, I'm on Instagram there. If they're looking at something and they want to know, is this a worthwhile book? Is this a worthwhile course? Just DM me and ask me. And I could always give you my opinion, and then it's up to you whether you take it or not.
They've asked you the question, and then it's up to that person to make their own decision.
And there are no hard and fast rules. Yeah. My final one was on garment construction, so finding, really good techniques that you can use. So, and upping your game.
What do you recommend?
Do I have one? My sewing secrets from the fashion industry, which I already spoke about. I think that's a really good book. And Threads magazine, I think is a really good resource as well. So subscribe to the print version because they need us to keep them going.
and look, if money is tight, ask your library.
But the last thing I wanted to say about Sew Over 50 is that I love that you can, even though don't have the patterns, you can go onto Sew Over 50 and see people like yourself wearing designs that you might want to make. And I love how they do their grid posts in sort of themes. So I was looking at what you can do with your fabric scraps, and you see all these people doing great, inspiring things. So I think it's a really inspiring account.
Yeah. And the posts that you love, bookmark them and share them, because that'll make sure that the Instagram algorithm will keep us visible as well.
Yes, I must remember to do that, because you sort of forget, and and I don't like how the algorithm, sometimes I think, where's that person I was following, and I actually actively go and find them.
Yes.
And sort of like their posts, so it'll bring them up, because but there's so many now that.
And look, the other thing too is if you haven't seen someone on the grid for a while, I know that many people actually direct message them and say, hey, are you okay? Right. Haven't seen you. And that's, again, one of the beauties of being part of the Sew Over 50 community.
Yes, because I have a lovely friend, Miss J Sews on, and so the other day I thought, I haven't seen her for a while, so I messaged her, and she said, yes, okay, my mum had a fall, and I have actually done that. Yeah,
same here. Natalie, thank you for coming onto the podcast for Sew Over 50. I'm really pleased that I could see you again and have this chat and let other people see you and hear from you as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Same here. Thank you so much, Natalie.
All right, thanks, Maria.
This episode of Sew Organised Style podcast for Sew Over 50 was video and audio produced by me, Maria Theoharis, in my sewing room with permission of Natalie Chim, and sound by Kaneef on YouTube. If you'd like to support the production of Sew Organised Style podcast, pop over to Patreon. It's easy to join. Make sure you direct message Sandy on Sew Over 50 to support their challenges and posts. Go back through the podcast archive to hear and see more people from the sewing community. There are over 480 episodes to listen to. I look forward to being with you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.